Hello and welcome to the Local Government Channel. I'm delighted to be joined by the LGA's Chief Executive, John Ransford. Thanks for joining us, John.
Very good to be here.
Now, you've recently had Lord Heseltine address the LGA on the subject of directly elected mayors. Does the LGA think there should be more directly elected mayors?
The LGA can't really think that because our membership's divided. A few people do and the majority of people don't. But it's certainly been the case over the last 30 years that the idea of directly elected mayors in England has had minority support in English local government.
But Lord Heseltine had a point though, didn't he, that cities like Birmingham, Manchester and Newcastle just haven't had the voice that London's had?
Well, they have. I mean, Birmingham and Manchester certainly had those in the 19th century. Chamberlain in Birmingham was the most famous local politician in his day. What's happened is the power structure's changed in England. We've become a very centralised country and everything is run nationally from London, government and control of local government. That is a very real problem.
So are we saying that directly elected mayors aren't necessarily a bad thing as long as they've got the powers to go along with it?
That's, I think, the crux. I think there'd be much more interest in the mayoral model if the person who was mayor had control over all public services in an area. And that's what councils want too. That's what localism is about. We can save considerable resources by doing that. We can deliver local priorities. But whilst government holds the purse strings of major public services, a mayor without sufficient powers is likely to fail.
Now, just to move on a little bit, we've heard recently that the council in Liverpool has pulled out of their pilot for the big society. How big an issue is the funding of charities and the voluntary sector?
Oh, it's a massive issue for us because local authorities are about community leadership and enabling things to happen. And one way you enable things to happen is have a vibrant community and voluntary sector. The problem is the scale of reductions that people have got to make in the next financial year means that some of that funding goes. Now, I don't think that means you don't have a good relationship and a balanced relationship with those sectors. But the funding reduction is bound to lead to concern and anger.
We now know the scale of the cuts for local government, and there was some surprise that those cuts are front-loaded. Councils have had a bit of time to kind of assess that now. What is the effect going to be?
Front-loading is still a massive difficulty. In a sense, having more time to analyse doesn't help because front-loading gets closer and closer every day. The new financial world starts on the 1st of April, and I think this system would have been manageable if it had been done on an equal reduction each year, or preferably backloading, so that you could do those things that the Secretary of State's particularly interested in, like cut transaction costs, combine posts, have less management posts. But it needs time to do that. With front loading, the effect starts in weeks, so people are having to make those decisions now.
Well, you've been very clear and vocal on the subject. Why hasn't Eric Pickles listened to you?
We can't answer that question. He will have to answer that question. We've put the case to him. We've said that we understand the economic circumstances and that local government must play its part. But remember, local government, according to all sorts of people, including the Prime Minister, is the most efficient part of the public sector. We've been taking 3% efficiency reductions for some years now, massively better performance than central government. Front loading means that you have to cut services. There's no way of avoiding it. And I think it's immensely sad that we couldn't do this on a more rational basis.
Well, perhaps we can ask him for you in the next couple of weeks. John Ransford, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.